Good morning, my friends. This is April the 10th of 2020, Holy Week. In the parlance of the church, this day is called Good Friday. But I want to draw your attention to something very simple. There's nothing good about this day. This is a day about a man innocently accused of heinous charges, a mob who turns against him, authorities and institutions that would dismiss him as an irrelevance and thus worthy of death. And there's nothing good about any of that. The only reason the church calls it Good Friday is because Jesus saved us. No. Jesus' whole existence saves us. What happens on the cross is connected to the night before last night, Thursday night. I'm going to tell you where the real battle was won. The real battle is won in Gethsemane. Calvary is the mop-up operation where what happens in the negative in Gethsemane is the positive in the cross. And that's this. Jesus rejects retribution, the possibilities of retribution, divine holy war, legions of angels, and all that. He rejects that in Gethsemane and then becomes a living witness of the Father's forgiveness for the human species, even his enemies. And they belong together. The synoptic tradition, I think, did well in including the Gethsemane story, although we could perhaps guess a little bit of the frame of it if all we had was the Epistle to the Hebrews, chapter 2 and 4, which is a reflection on the Gethsemane narrative. So what we're looking at here today is not necessarily good. But you need to hear this. You really do. It's only good if there's a sacrificial interpretation. Okay? So what makes it good? Yes, there are wonderful benefits that Paul's understood and that the writer of John understood about the cross. Okay? As a demonstration of the love and forgiveness and the power of the Father. Yes, they're good. But in terms of who we are and how we were involved, there's nothing good about it. So we want to remember when the spiritual says, were you there when they crucified my Lord? If you answer anything else but yes to that question, you don't understand the cross yet. And if you answer that question yes, and you see yourself in the position of the women in the beloved disciple, and not in the soldiers, not in the religious authorities, not in the mocking crowds. But if you try to see yourself as innocent in all this, you'll misunderstand everything about the cross. Because the cross has fundamentally to do with the death of all things wrong and broken in the world, in the cosmos, the end of the cosmos. The cross ends all of this. It ends everything. You need to hear this. It ends your life. It ends your civilization. It ends your thinking. It ends your religion. It ends your philosophy. It ends your economics. It ends your politics. The cross ends you. It ends rule of law. It ends everything that we think we know. It ends it all. And it's not that the cross ends it. I want you to see this. It's that we choose to sacrifice. We choose this. We choose this ending. That's the ending we humans chose. The sacrifice of the God. It's always been the same. The history of religion is replete with the sacrifice of the gods. Mythology and ritual and cultural customs are all witnesses to this. There are even if we do the Girardian approach to this, we could even cite all modern institutions, governments, banks, churches, religious institutions, everything. It's all sacrificial. The whole framework of the human economy and the way we relate to each other is sacrificial. And the cross is the end of all of that. It's the end of all sacrifice, except for self-giving, which is not self-sacrifice, but which is fundamentally a different orientation. So when we come to this day, the last thing we want to do is misunderstand it. Okay? And this misunderstanding, the gospel writers already saw would occur. I remember having a conversation with Rene Girard a decade or two ago, and I've not seen this in print. He might have it in print somewhere. I've searched and searched, and I'm about 90% positive Rene said it, because I'm not clever enough to come up with something like this. But I remember Rene saying, when you come to the Gospel of Mark and the crucifixion narrative, and Jesus cries out from the Psalm 22 text, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, my God, why have you abandoned me? And that he's trying to bring to their minds what they're doing. They're scapegoating him. That whole psalm is about a mob scapegoating an individual. Trying to bring that to the mind, but they won't hear it. They can't hear it. Instead, they say, oh, look, he's calling Elijah. You see, there's already at the cross is this radical misunderstanding that Jesus seeks a Deus ex machina. And then, of course, once you do that, then you can turn the entire event into some sick, sacrificial Deus ex machina event of God pouring out God's wrath on this poor, hapless Jesus, and all the Augustinian Calvinist nonsense that goes with that. But that's not in the text, nor is it in the gospel. Now, I have been reluctant, as you know, over the years to share much of my personal story. I don't think personal experiences are to be rated that highly. And I think they're personal for a reason. They come to us rarely. People that think they're having them all the time aren't. But a serious Sunday in church, that's bullshit. Okay? So, in light of that, I need to do something I don't want to do. I really don't want to do it. I'm feeling compelled to do it, and I would prefer not to do it. But my friends, my very close friends, know some of this tale, and it's my own personal experience of Gethsemane and crucifixion that literally transformed everything for me. And I will share more about what happened after that tomorrow, and then on Sunday. If you remember back in 2017, if you were my Facebook friend at that time, if you're not, you were probably lucky. I got crucified online. I lost a lot of Facebook friends. I lost a lot of respect from people because I was being called a racist and a misogynist and this and that and the other and dot, 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 dot. And the progressive Christians were all just sucking at the tit of the intellectuals and the academy and their PC police and everything else. And I watched as progressive Christianity became hyper-regressive Christianity, and that's all it remains today. It's a sick shadow of its former 1960s, 70s, and 80s self. Today, what we have is kind of a Leninist Marxist approach to being a Christian in the progressive left. Never mind, we got Mussolini and Trump on the others with the religious right. So it's all bad. The whole damn thing is bad. That's why it's all got to die. But while I was being crucified, I had remembered the words given to me some years prior to that by a friend of mine in Ireland named Ferg. And he said, Michael, when you're attacked, don't go on the defensive. Ferg and others that know me well know I'm a fighter. I will fight you. I don't put up with anything. I will fucking fight you. End of story. Um, Pacifism is not a natural calling for me. Being forgiving doesn't come easy for me. It's not, I'm not a good person in that sense. I'm not some sweet little old grandma. Um, but during that time, I did my level best to heed Ferg's advice and not go on the attack on Facebook. But it kept getting harder and harder as I was watching Preaching Peace die. The dream Lori and I had, it was our whole life. Everything we'd been working for a decade. Everything we'd dreamed of. And I'm watching it come tumbling down around me because people in the progressive Christian community needed scapegoats desperately in order to hold on to their unity because they were completely divided in 1,000 different spheres. You had your Black Lives Matter here, you had your LGBT thing there, you had your this thing there, and your that thing there, and it was an alphabet soup. And everybody in the progressive Christian movement, the environmentalists, they're all vying to have their agenda be number one, and they needed a scapegoat. And I was convenient. And then later that year, it turned out Brian Zahnd became another one. Some of you know Brian. They don't stop, these people, with their scapegoating. So don't think that they're good and righteous people. And they'll be doing their Good Friday sermons today thinking such, but they're just as self-justified as the religious right. In late June of 2017, I knew I had to get off Facebook because I was being literally told in my deepest self, I would say by Jesus, get off Facebook because you're going to blow it. You're going to blow it. So I got off Facebook on early morning, July 4th. And then that day and the next day are 2 days that will live in my memory. They are etched so deep in my memory. Now I'm going to share the events with you. I'll also share my interpretation of them. I could be wrong. It really doesn't matter what you think about them. It's my interpretation of my own personal experience that matters to me. It's just yours matters to you. And again, I share these reluctantly because I'm not a flaming charismatic and I don't think that you should go out and try and find a way to copy them or anything. I don't know that you'd want to after you hear about them. So on July 4th, that morning, I got off Facebook, shut my account down, whatever they call it, disabled it, and I flew into a rage, an internal rage. Now, to give you some context, some of you are familiar with my book, Walking with Grandfather. Some of you know I have been studying with Tom Brown Jr. for 18 years. Some of you know that Lori and I do a lot of work in Native American shamanic traditions. And some of you know that when one is learning to become a healer, one also learns to become a warrior, and one also has to deal with the dark side. So to keep it simple, let me just say this. The same power that one uses to heal cancer can cause cancer. It just depends on the intent of the person using the power. Now, Lori and I have had a lot of experiences with all of this. Some are recorded in my book, Walking with Grandfather, and many more aren't. Suffice it to say, I've seen enough in my life for me to say there's a reality to this for me, and whether you buy that or not doesn't matter to me. But that afternoon, as I began raging, I thought of the two people in particular that had started this thing, the one that provided the fire and the other that provided the tinder. And in my rage, I began thinking of all the harm that I could do them, not in the physical sphere, not in the economic sphere, not in the blog sphere, but in the world of the spirit. When you cross the line to the dark side, if you make that first choice, you know, every shaman knows this. There's no turning back. You don't turn back from that. It's literally the choice for your life. That's why when you choose the light, or you choose to be a healer, that's the choice you're making, and you have to constantly make it. Well, this day, I came up to that line again and again and again and again. I didn't know idea I had that much pent up anger, resentment, bitterness, and hate. Tremendous amount at these two figures. And so I began hatching in my head, crossing that line, and what would befall these two people. And it wouldn't be quick, it would be long and slow. So I went to bed, as I recall, about 9 o'clock that night, angry, furious, and it's summertime, it's hot. I laid in bed for 2 hours, again, coming closer and closer to that line and making that decision to basically throw everything away that was important to me in order to hurt these two people in the spirit world and make their lives total living hell. So I'm wrestling, and every time I'd come up to the line and get ready to make that choice, I'd back away, just over and over, just back away. Finally, around 11 o'clock, and I know because I had looked at the clock shortly after it ends here, just before 11, I was just so tired of this battle I'd been having all day long. It had been, I don't know, 8 or 9, 10, 11 hours of just this battle. And I heard Jesus' voice. Now I know Jesus' voice. Jesus' voice is different than the Father's voice for me. Neither one of them speak much. When they speak, I listen. And I know Jesus' voice. And he said, everything will be different tomorrow. And I just looked up in the dark at the ceiling, at heaven, at Jesus, and I said, fuck you, Jesus. And boom, it was like a spell was broken. And in my exhaustion, I fell asleep. So I came out the next morning and I sat right out there in my patio. And I'm going to do my morning meditation that I do, where we go to our sacred areas, internally. And we have an oak tree in our backyard there. And so I'll use that as a point of reference while I'm in wide angle vision and I'm going into the meditation process. When bam, just out of the blue, there's a large crowd in front of me. There's enormous pain in my wrists and my feet and my ass. And I'm hanging, and it's got to be a cross of some sort, and there's this crowd in front of me, and I can see the faces of the Facebook friends that really screwed me. I can see the faces of the progressive Christian leaders that really screwed me. I can see other faces I don't recognize, hundreds of them. And in this moment, there's this extraordinary forgiveness flowing out through me to these people. Now, I know two things at the same time. Number one, or I'm aware of two things at the same time. And I'm telling you what's going in, what I'm thinking in this as it's happening. First thing I'm aware of is that this is not my forgiveness. This is Jesus. This is how he was as he's on the cross looking at everybody. This is just pouring out of him. Second thing is, it's coming from me. It is mine. I get to participate in it. So I did. And it didn't last so long. And then poof, I was back in my chair. And Jesus said, you will never have another enemy. Meaning, I don't have enemies. People might think I'm their enemy. I can't do anything about that. But I don't have enemies. It was like forgiveness for everybody, for everything became real, powerful at that moment. Now, what that moment did, and I'm going to set up tomorrow's lesson. What that moment did, this is July 5th, is I was invited to absolutely trust in the Heavenly Father that everything was fine, that I'd be fine. I remember that loud and clear as a bell. Michael, I've got you. Just trust me. I've got you. And on that day, on July 5th, I said, Papa, please just pay the bills. I don't want to lose Lori. I don't want to lose a house. Just pay the bills. And do you know the Father's been faithful to that? But there's more about this that becomes important. But if you want to know why things have shifted in my life this last several years, well, you can go back to that event. The promise of the gospel is we do get to experience crucifixion. If we follow Jesus, we will experience crucifixion. If you have not experienced this yet, if you have not been hated by the group or the mob, if you've not been, selected as their sacrifice, then it's hard to talk about. You can only do it intellectually. But once it's happened, and for most of us, it's happened over and over and over in our lives. It had happened to me many times, but this was the first time I embraced it. It was the first time I passed the Gethsemane test as well. So you're going to face your Gethsemanes out there, folks. That's what Good Friday is all about. Good Friday is about how you faced your Gethsemane. If you faced your Gethsemane poorly, you're going to handle your crucifixion badly. But if you face your Gethsemane with trust in the Father, then the crucifixion is also handled in trust. It's about how we handle our Gethsemanes in life and whether we're willing to let go of retribution in all forms. All right, I will look forward to chatting with you tomorrow.